All right, you're back here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. So humble to be your host, Mike Cunningham here from Gill Athletics. Hey, if you're a regular listener, if you're a watcher on YouTube, you already know something's different, right? I got more than two screens, me and a guest up here. We've got two guests, and this is always it's always more challenging here for your host here because one on one, it's pretty easy, right? There's only one person I got to worry about. I got two, and spoiler alert, they're father and son. I hope the son doesn't get in trouble. Does he still ground them? I don't know. We'll find out. Help me welcome from the amazing school. I really love this conference, this school, this division. I'm fascinated by it. Help me welcome from UW Stevens Point. I didn't even get clarification. Head coach, director, emeritus. I don't know. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Rick Whitt and Brett Whitt. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Mike.
The number one rule, I probably should have done this before we hit record too, is it's always hard for you guys to know who's going to talk. And you know what? Since you're father and son, I'm going to let you guys work that out. I'm not going to get in trouble here. I can't spoil Christmas because we're past that, but I'm not going to get anybody in trouble here. Help me again. These are probably things I should have done before hit record. Help me understand the official titles because Rick, you and I have known and worked with each other for, I've been here 20 years now, so for a long time. You are now the emeritus, the director. What is your title at UW Stevens Point?
Actually, Brett gave me the title of Director of Operations because we didn't know what else to call it.
Sure. Okay. I love it.
Uh, Pretty much, I do what he asked me to do, and
Nice.
then I throw in some things that I think maybe might work or things that we've done in the past that we felt like would, continue to enhance our program. And so he gives me kind of an open end as to what it is. And after having coached for so many years, I pretty much coach whatever nobody else wants to coach or whatever we don't
Yeah.
have other expertise on our staff that can handle. So right now, I'm officially the javelin coach and the multi coach.
Nice. I love that you must be the most experienced director of ops in all of our college system here in America. That's great. And Brett, you are now, is your title head or director? I never know anymore with these different titles. What's officially your title there at Stevens Point?
Now I am just head men's and women's track and field.
Okay.
My title has changed a couple times. When I first came back, I think I was technically the associate head coach. Then I was head of track and cross country for a while. And now I can just focus and have the title of just men's and women's track and field.
Does that mean, do you have someone whose title is the head cross country coach then?
Correct.
I love that. It's a little not cringe, but I don't like when the head coach who is the throws coach or the jumps coach or the sprints coach has the full title of head cross country and track. Cause I'm like, no, there's someone who's running cross country. And certainly they may have to run some things through the head track. I get that, but there's someone who is in charge of cross and it's not you. So I like that you have a separate, this person is in charge of cross and assumably distance running. So I like that change there. My other love and fascination is mascots, and I'm trying to remember. So UW Stevens Point, I want to say it's some kind of dog or something, right? What is it?
It is officially the pointer dog. If you visualize the dog pointing at a
Yep.
pheasant or whatever, that is the official mascot.
The
Yes.
pointer. Yeah, I was thinking I must have remembered something about hunting because I was thinking bloodhound, but I knew that wasn't it. It's the pointer. That's unique, and I love that. That's really cool. I
Thanks.
love that. Okay, gentlemen, we are here to uplift and honor your journey in this great profession. You certainly have been around for a long time. It's obviously very unique that we have a father and son duo, if you will. That's going to be fascinating to learn. If is Brett held hostage here? Maybe you wanted to be a business owner, but Rick wasn't having it. You were going to be a track coach. We'll find out. Rick, why don't we start with you as our esteemed director of operations? How in the world did you get into coaching track and field?
It's really an interesting. Somebody asked me that once before. When I was in high school, I was a little bitty guy. I was one of those guys that did not grow until I was about a senior in high school. I went to the premier wrestling high school, probably in the country at the time. There was a wrestling coach named Bob Siddons who was in every Hall of Fame for wrestling that you can have, and he went through every class and recruited every kid to be on the wrestling team. So I went out for wrestling, and he wanted me because I weighed about 105 and they needed somebody that could wrestle 95.
Right.
Well, there happened to be a guy that was a year behind me that all I ever saw were the lights. A guy named Dan Gable, who was the Olympian. And needless to say, I didn't get to wrestle much.
Wait a minute. You went to school with Dan Gable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know almost zero about wrestling. Very, very, very little.
Yeah.
But I know Dan Gable's name. I mean,
Sure.
like not infamous, famous coach, right? Iowa? Where
he was at Iowa. Yeah.
at Iowa. Holy cow. Wait, so that means you wrestled, like you practiced with him and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Our wrestling room was a who's who of, guys that went on to be national champs, all-American wrestlers, everything. And so that was,
wow.
But our coach, we had to run every morning because wrestlers have to be in fantastic shape. And so I was running, and to make a long story short, Bob Siddon said to me, he says, Rick, I don't know whether your future is going to be real great in wrestling. However, buddy, you can run like crazy. Said you should go talk to Mr. Argetsinger, who was the cross country and track and field coach. And so lo and behold, I just wanted to be an athlete, and so lo and behold, I ended up going to talk to the cross country coach, and the rest was history. I found my spot where I was a good runner, and it led going on and being coaching.
It is. I know you went to Northern Iowa, which will be your next stop here. Is this in Iowa? Is this high school in Iowa?
Waterloo is very close. It's like you guys being in Champaign-Urbana. I mean, Cedar Falls is right next to Waterloo, and I went to college there. I got recruited. I actually had a fairly successful high school career and went to Cedar Falls and ran at Northern Iowa. I was a good runner, not a great runner. Made a couple of national championships in cross country and won in track, and fell in love with the sport. I mean, that just, so I, wasn't going to start out as a college coach, but my college coach got me a teaching job at where he had gone to high school. And I taught, like many people, elementary to high school physical education, and started coaching track and field. Was there at a outstanding time where I lucked out. And we all know you got to be good and you got to be lucky at the same time. There were some kids that fell into track and field that had never heard of it, and because I was really into it, they got into it. One of the guys ended up he was one of the best distance runners to come out of Iowa at the time, and got a Division I scholarship, was in a car accident, broke his back, so he gave up his scholarship, went to MIT, was super smart, went to MIT, got healthy again, ended up winning the NCAA championships at Division III in the 10K, and then got fourth at the Olympic trials in the marathon about 3 years later. So I was lucky in that I got into where a bunch of guys were good. At the time, I had one of the fastest high school freshmen in the country, ran 152 as a ninth grader in high school. So, I was in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And the opportunity came to go back to my old college and coach. And when I went back there, my college coach says, okay, here's the cross country team, sink or swim, you do it, and he gave me that opportunity.
When you went to school at Northern Iowa, did you go to Northern Iowa I'm going to become a track coach, whether it's high school or college, or when did that actually that's a career I'm going to pursue?
No, honestly, I was going to be like a history major. I wanted to work for like the FBI or the DIII or one of those types of things. And that I kind of pursued that the whole way through, and then the longer that I was in track and field, the more I fell in love with track and field, and so by the time that I was a senior, I pretty well knew that that's what I wanted to do. I just
Mhm.
didn't know how to do what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. And so starting out in high school was, you know, seemed to be the way that everybody did it at that point in time.
And you know, my history, our history is typically, you know, within decades of where we are living, right? So my understanding and knowledge of University of Northern Iowa, you know, they call the Miami of Ohio the coaches of cradle for football. A lot of football coaches have gone through University of Miami of Ohio. I think of University of Northern Iowa, as well as North Central, by the way. We were talking about North Central earlier, is kind of the cradle of track and field. Like there are so many track and field coaches that come through University of Northern Iowa. Was it like that back then, or were you maybe the beginning of that?
There were a lot of coaches that came out at that time. You need to realize that when the school at one time was like a teacher's college, and
Right.
so
Mm-hmm. Of
that kind of was the foundation of
course.
people that went there were people that were going to go into the educational field.
Mhm.
And thus, you know, coaching was at that point in time, as you well know, if you were a teacher, you were probably a coach.
Right.
And so it did kind of lend itself to those types of, you know,
Makes sense.
moving forward in that type of a profession. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so how do we get to UW Stevens Point from coaching K through 12 PE and really good runners, by the way? Holy cow.
We, as I said, my college coach asked me to come back, and I was a graduate assistant there. And as I said, he gave me an opportunity to just kind of like sink or swim with the cross country team and during the distance guys during the track season. And so we had a little bit of success, and then there was a position at UW-Platteville. The guy was going to be gone on a sabbatical, and my college coach said, "Here's a chance for you to get your feet wet." And like you and I well know, there's a great line of communication between coaches, and he knew somebody that knew somebody, you know, and one of those types of things. And so a guy named John Barth hired me, gave me an opportunity to be a coach, and it was a gold mine waiting to happen. I stepped in at the right time. There were some outstanding athletes that were there. The coach that was there before me he had done a good job, but he also was like a teacher, and I think he was more into the teaching thing than he was into the track and field thing. Well, I jumped in, and we had a big success. We had gone from them not being very good in the conference to, I think we got third the first year I was there in the WIAC, and then he came back and I left, and I moved down the road to Loris College.
Yeah.
Is just like, 25 miles from Platteville, and we were not very good there. The team was. I always tell people in cross country, I used to run and stop and then time the guys as they came through because I was still competing fairly heavily at that time. And then the Stevens Point job came open, and the guy that had been the coach was going to move up and become the AD. And he called me and said, he knew what I had done at Platteville in that 1 year, and he gave me a chance. And we came to Stevens Point, and 50 years later, here we are.
Wow, that's amazing. There's a conversation, bunch of guys and such at USTFCA convention. This is several years ago, 5-6 years, where the topic of people moving jobs, hopping jobs. And by the way, I coached for 10 years and was at 5 different places. So I'm that guy that hopped every year to two. But we were talking about coaches who had been at an institution for a long time. And we got through like Mouse, and this was before Curtis Fry retired. We came up with about 10 real quick, but then it was a little harder to keep adding people. You've been at Stevens Point for 50 years?
It'll be this is year 49 right now.
So did you know the original retriever then? The pointer?
Pretty much.
This seems like a joke question, but this is actually true. Were they the pointers back then?
Yes, they were.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Just making sure. And Brett, forgive me, I don't think I've ever asked this question on air before. How old are you?
I'm 50.
So were you born at Stevens Point or at Loris?
Platteville.
Platteville. Okay. So okay. All right. Not that you would remember, being one in Platteville and all that kind of stuff. But I was trying to think of, are you always been Stevens Point in that sense? Wow. Holy cow. Okay. You get to Stevens Point. You got some experience with Division III and the WIAC. The WIC, it's I don't know. I, I want to think that everybody knows about the WIAC, but of course, not everybody knows about the WIC. The UW system is unstinking believable. Like, if you want to win a national title, it's coming through the WIC. One of you guys are almost always pushing for the title. Has it been that way for this, 49, let's call it 50 years, or has that been a more recentish 10 to 20 year thing?
When I first came to Stevens Point, all of us were NAI.
Oh.
The whole Wisconsin system was NAI.
Wow, okay.
And but however, the Wisconsin state system was non-scholarship. So
Okay.
we were competing against, at that time, Abilene Christian and Eastern New Mexico. And
Right.
I mean, there were people that had Olympians, on their team at the NAI, because you got to remember that's when the NCAA had an age limit too.
Oh, yeah, well, that's gone.
Yeah. So the NAIA probably was on par with, Division I
Mhm.
as far as the caliber of athletes. And so if we got one or two people that made nationals, we thought that was a rousing success. And then in the early 80s, the whole conference went from NAIA to Division III.
The whole conference.
Yes.
Fascinating. And because you guys had decided to be non-scholarship in AIA, can I assume that that transition to Division III was a little easier than maybe it would have been if you'd had scholarships?
Yeah. I mean, nothing really changed.
Right, right.
To be very honest, it became more reasonable for us to be successful
Right.
at the national level, because we were basically playing on a level field now, not necessarily playing against, as I said, Olympians
Right.
and that type of thing. Yeah.
And I have been fascinated with not University of Wisconsin high school coaches. I've been to their clinic, I want to say 100 times, lots of times. I'm now, one of the MCs for the clinic, and I just absolutely love what they do and what they do at that clinic. And so I've spoken at that clinic before, and I've spoken to like sprints and hurdles, and I've always had to be very cognizant. You basically have a 3-month high school season in Wisconsin, March, April, and May, and that's it, right?
That is correct. Yes.
So, and Wisconsin is not our most populous state in the country, right? If you think, especially for track and field, if you think about that, you think about the California, Texas, Florida, Ohio has a lot, Illinois, Wisconsin, as far as quality. But there's not a lot of kids in Wisconsin comparatively to some other states. How in the world does the WIC? I know they're not all Wisconsin kids, but I think the majority are Wisconsin kids. How in the world have you guys been so dominant in NCAA Division III? And you're not in Texas. If you guys were all in Texas, it kind of makes sense, I guess. You're in Wisconsin.
I think you hit kind of the nail on the head in the fact that most Wisconsin kids are very, very undercoached and undertrained, not because we don't have good coaches,
Right, right.
because there is no time to do, because you can't have preseason practice.
Right.
I mean, they start March 8th or 12th or whatever, have 10 days, and then they start having meets.
Right.
And they run 2 meets a week for 9 weeks, and then the state meet, and then you're done.
Right.
And so most of those kids, the talent never really has an opportunity to shine, even though there is some really talented kids there. And once they, get into a program where there's time to do some development and those types of things, it shows up. And then a lot of those kids are multi-event are sport athletes, and they're coming off the basketball court, and we're saying, okay, you're going to be high jumping next week, that type of thing. And so I think that's the biggest thing right there.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, because if you were just to look at it on paper, you might think, well, Wisconsin high school coaches aren't very good. And I know that to be the exact opposite. There are tons of amazing coaches in Wisconsin. They get 3 months. That first month is still under snow, by the way. When they start in March, it's still freezing and under snow. That makes a lot of sense that, yeah, it's good kids, but, you don't have time to coach them. You can't get to their full potential. Well, maybe when we get closer to year round and some facilities, we can get that done on the college level. Makes sense.
I'd hop in there if you don't mind real quick too, and just full transparency. We're fortunate in the state of Wisconsin that there are not a lot of scholarship track and field cross country schools in the state of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Badgers, obviously, who are an elite Division I program. So there's a very few kids that can fill their spots. And then there's Milwaukee, Marquette. Green Bay doesn't have track and field, and then we have one Division II school, UW Parkside. So, in full transparency, some of that talent from in other states that might go to a Division II school or a lower level Division I school, we're probably getting some of those because there just aren't as many schools to choose from in the state of Wisconsin.
Each state, it's so fascinating to me. I didn't think about that. That's a great point. And that made me think of almost the exact opposite, like a state like North Carolina, different weather, but very similar in regards to, not the most populated state in the 50 states, but they have the exact opposite. There are like 100 colleges that are 4-year scholarship type of schools there, Catawba to obviously UNC's to Wilmington and Pembroke. I mean, there's so many for that state, and you're the Wisconsin's almost the exact opposite, where it's like, yeah, there's just a handful of the scholarship schools. That's fascinating to me. Well, Rick mentioned talented kids, Brett, and that's that was going to be my great segue to. Well, then let's talk to Brett. Thinking about talented kids. So, Brett, where do you come along here? You are the son of a coach. I think that's fascinating. I think there's a lot of positives to that. There also could be some negatives there. What was it like growing up as the son of Coach Whitt?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know any different. I was always the son of a coach. I can give him credit. He never pushed me to run. My first love was basketball. I played soccer. I enjoyed that a lot. I think I knew I was fast on the soccer field, comparatively speaking. But I mean, as a kid growing up, who wants to run when you can chase a ball or bounce a ball or shoot a hoop or something like that? So, like I said, those were my first loves, and took me a while to figure out track was kind of where I needed to be or should be.
Did you ever wrestle?
No.
Okay, I was wondering. Yeah.
No,
hold on, wait.
At the same time as basketball.
Okay, because you were very adamant, and I also saw Rick down there going, yeah, no. Maybe some WWE playing, but not wrestling.
Yeah, my brother and I may have did some Hulk Hogan things in the basement or something like that, but nothing on an actual wrestling mat.
I love it. So how did track come along then?
It was my ninth. Running in general kind of came along my ninth grade year. I was trying out for the freshman soccer team at the high school and didn't have a great experience during tryouts. I didn't even make it through tryouts. I don't know if I would have made the team or not. I'm not going to speculate. I just didn't care for how the coach was doing things. And so my brother was on the cross country team, and so I transitioned over to cross country with Don Banky. If you've been at the Wisconsin Coaches Convention, you've probably heard that name.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job. It doesn't matter if you're the fastest runner or the 100th runner. He treats you like a great person, and that got me started in cross country. I did track in 7th and 8th grade as well, and had a little bit of success. But that was kind of when I jumped into running a little bit more in depthly by joining that cross country team as 9th grade, and stuck with that. And did track in the spring. Still played basketball in the winter until I got cut my junior year, and then I think that's kind of when I both feet in the water and said, well, I'm not playing soccer. I got cut from basketball. I guess I'm a runner. And that's when I kind of went all in as an athlete as far as, running is concerned.
A couple things there. It's interesting. You talk about that soccer experience you had, and that's one of the things, when I think about my role as, I call myself like the track coach advocate. When I think about men and women who choose to become track coaches, and we're the most participated sport in, right? If you, in high school, if you take boys and girls together, we have more people running track than football and basketball. In college, when you take men and women together, we have more people running track and cross country than we do playing football and basketball and baseball and all those kind of sports, right? And I think, and I don't even think it's a fine line. I think you can do both. And I've seen plenty of people do both, where you can run a very high level program, meaning kids going to nationals and whatever else you think might success be, but also have a good experience for the kids. And that soccer experience tells me, it's like, oh man, boy, soccer missed out. Soccer could have had Coach Witt doing something to further soccer in this country and kids and stuff. And because of that bad experience, better for us as track people, we got you over here. It's just something to think about as track coaches when you have young people around, whether they are, again, air quotes here, good or not so good. They're still humans. They're still young people under your care, and that's a precious thing. So I appreciate that. How was it? We've had a couple at least I can think of off the top of my head, married couples. Your father and son. Don't stay with me. I'm not going to get weird here. Husband and wife coaching staffs, and I'm always fascinated. Like, how do you separate your job, your career, and your dinner table, right? How do you not bring work at home sometimes? I'm thinking about with you, Brett, you're running track during high school. Rick, you're coaching the college kids. Brett, are you ever asking Rick for advice? Rick, are you trying to stay hands off, let the high school coach do his thing? How did you guys handle, get a pretty knowledgeable coach here and dad? How did you handle that aspect?
I tried to make sure my wife was really good at making sure that I realized that I was dad and not just coach. And so when we were at school, I was coach. When we were at home, I was dad. Yeah. And that's exactly the way we didn't really talk shop. We didn't talk about, you should have done this, you should have gone out harder, you should have gone out easier. We didn't even go there. It was like, I'm dad, and yes, here's what we're, I'm going to come and watch your cross country meet, and I'm not going to comment on, did you do this or that? And I wanted him to have fun doing what the sport was. Yes.
Brett, we have real-time fact checking. How did dad/coach do in that?
I think he's spot on. I honestly don't recall ever coming home from a track meet or a practice and asking for his advice, or him saying, what'd you do at practice? Oh, what were your paces, or anything like that. I mean, even back in that time, Don Banky was, as far as cross country is concerned, was a great coach. And so he knew I was being taken care of well there. Ironically, Kevin Streveler, I don't think he was ever my head track coach in high school, but he coached me in junior high. And then when I went up to high school, he ironically went to the high school at the same time. Well, he was on coach's team for a year. He took coach's coaching classes at UWSP. So I'm assuming he thought that Kevin Streveler was probably using some of the things he learned from him. So once again, he assumed I probably was in pretty good hands. Pat Leahy was doing some coaching at Spash at that time too. He's doing a little bit more of the longer distance stuff, but he was on his team. So while he wasn't having a direct say in things, the guys that were having direct says in things were kind of offshoots from him. So
influence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rick, you're better than I am, because my son, and I'm really, actually, I think it's better that he doesn't do track. He did some throwing in middle school, which I know nothing about throwing. But I was a pretty decent sprints hurdles coach. And I always, as my son was growing up, I was like, can I be the guy that just sits in the stands, and as long as everything's safe, can I just be like, all right, cool, that's what coaches do. I'm gotta support coach. I don't think that I could. I would, I'd be putting my nose in where I shouldn't be and stuff like that. So Rick, you're better than me on that one. I appreciate that.
Well, Mike, if it makes you feel any better, I sometimes get an elbow from my wife on the soccer field when my kids are playing. You don't be telling them that. Sorry.
My son is fully into, he's a freshman this year, bass fishing. Like I think they're 10th in state right now. They went to the national tournament last year, and I know nothing about fish. Like he teaches me, so it's awesome. I get to go, oh, that's cool. It's fascinating. I have no idea. That's great. Are you doing it right? I don't know. You safe? That's all I care. Yeah. So it's probably best that way. Okay, Brett, as you're going through high school, you get to your senior year, and of course we start thinking about college and maybe what we want to do. Kind of two questions. One, was it a foregone conclusion that you were going to Stevens Point? And two, where are you in your thought of are you just destined you're going to be a track coach, or did you have other thoughts of maybe being a business owner, an astronaut, who knows, a lawyer?
Yeah, going to Stevens Point was not a foregone conclusion. Dad was here, brother was here and running. Um, I'm blaming him for this. I think he went to the WIAC coaches conference going into my senior year and told everybody they couldn't recruit me because I was a good runner in high school, and I did not get recruited by a single WIAC school except UW Stevens Point. I'm like, I got a medal at the state meet from the 400, and I did not get recruited by a single WIAC school but Stevens Point. I was only looking at schools out of state because nobody in the dang state was recruiting me. And ultimately, it came down to two things. One, the tuition cost of staying in Wisconsin is hugely advantaged. And I ultimately, as you've already kind of alluded to, thought it'd be easier at the Christmas dinner table to be running for dad versus running against dad.
Yeah, sure. Rick, there's assumptions as well, right? There's a lot of times where a coach's son, we just like, yeah, why am I going to recruit him? He's going to his dad. But I noticed when you were saying that, Rick states very stone faced there. Is there some truth to that, Rick? Were you telling people like, yeah, he's coming. Don't even worry about him, guys.
It's very true. Honestly, I recruited him exactly the way I recruited everybody else.
Yeah.
He's at the dinner table, and there would be a letter that had been written, because you got to remember at the time, this is before emails and
right.
before text and everything. And so there was a lot of handwritten notes and that kind of stuff. And his mom would have a letter at the dinner table when he came home, and it would have been from UW Stevens Point track and field. And so I tried to make
You wrote that letter?
Oh, yeah. I wrote the letter, sent it to my son, and mailed it to the house so that he had it. And I wanted him to realize that, this was the real deal. This wasn't dad recruiting you.
Yeah.
This was UW Stevens Point recruiting you as a student athlete to come to Stevens Point.
Brett, was that cool? Or, you're a kid. I have a lot of grace for 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Or was that corny? Because now we look back, that was cool, right? I mean, that's pretty
absolutely cool. Now, back at the time, I probably didn't appreciate it as much as now that I'm much older. I wish I still had the letters. I have no idea what happened to them, but absolutely
cool.
Right now, I think it's super cool.
That's so cool, man. I love that. That makes me think about even right now, not recruiting, obviously, but like writing a letter to my son, just, we talk every time, but there's something about putting thoughts on paper there's something special about that. That's pretty cool. So Brett, when you were looking at schools and where you're going to run, and obviously you ended up going to Stevens Point, were you thinking of becoming a coach, or was there some other idea for a career?
No, and this is where he maybe gives some credit. ESPN when I was growing up was like kind of the new fancy thing. So I was every morning, every night glued to ESPN and watching. And so he planted the seed of maybe you should come to Stevens Point. We've got a great broadcast communications program.
Yeah.
You could try to be on ESPN. I'm like, I could maybe be on ESPN. That would be so cool. And so that was one of the things that he sold me on in coming to UW Stevens Point. And that was my intention up until my junior year, is when I actually got to sit behind a desk with a camera on me and pseudo do sports broadcasting. And I'm not gonna say it was an utter fail, but it was a huge disappointment. It's like, where's Stuart Scott? Where's the graphics? Where's the boom shakalaka cooler on the other side of the pillow? Like, this is nothing like ESPN. And that was the moment in my head. I literally remember walking into his office, the one I'm sitting in, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I was like, I think I want a more vested interest in the outcome of the sport or the event, not just talking about the results. And so I think he advised me, well, you better pick up the coaching minor then. and you're going to have to get your master's degree. And so that is when I flipped the switch from talking about sports to wanting to be involved in it.
That I love your thought process there of like, oh, I think I want to affect the actual sport instead of reporting on it necessarily. I love that. It does, I'm still just boggled in, our society that we make 18-year-olds pick a major that's going to affect the rest of their life. And they're 18. They know nothing. You think about yourself at 18, or you think about yourself at 18. We're dummies at 18 for crying out loud, and they make us go to college and pick a major. Good luck. It's gonna be the rest of your career, supposedly. So I love that. I love that your thought. I was a print journalism major in college, print journalism, public relations, and same thing. I thought I was going to write newspaper, and thank God I didn't go that route. I'd be out of a job. There's no more newspapers, but I love that aspect of it. So Rick, you talked about you coached or you taught a coaching class. That I think that's foreign today, right? I don't think there's very many like coaching track and field classes anymore, right?
No, there aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time in Wisconsin, if you wanted to coach, you needed to have a coaching certification. And so there was like a minor for coaching.
Yeah.
And so that was, it was a very, very popular class because everybody that wanted to be a teacher wanted to be able to do some kind of coaching, no matter what it was. And it wasn't really specifically track and field. It was, I taught two classes. One was scientific concepts of coaching, and the other one was psychology and motivational aspects of coaching. And so those were two of the most popular classes. I mean, the class was full every time we offered it. And so it kind of, set things up for, people that wanted to go into the coaching profession.
Yeah. I got to show you something. Hold on. I got to grab something for you and show you. Sorry, it was right in front of my face and I couldn't find it. So this is a book called Track and Field Athletics, Coach and Consultant. This was back in the 20s and 30s. So before you, Rick, this is what they would teach coaching track and field classes back in the day. This is one of the original books. This was written by Harry Gill. So he taught and wrote the actual book that most schools around the country would teach coaching track and field from. This is written by Harry Gill. I thought you'd kind of find that kind of neat.
That's cool. Yeah,
that's pretty neat. Coaching contestant, not consultant. They probably didn't call coaches consultants back then. Yeah, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Okay, Brett, you make this switch that I'm going to go into coaching, maybe get that minor and things like that. I hate to use the word assume because we know what that means, but okay, you graduate. Is it just you're going to coach for your dad?
No, not at all. He told me I had to get a master's, so I knew that. So senior year was applying for graduate schools. Fortunately, I got I got into and offered a graduate assistant position for teaching at the University of Tennessee. And once again, maybe a little bit of not what you know, but who you know. Buck Jones used to be one of the track coaches at UW La Crosse, and he was teaching down there at the time. So I only can speculate that maybe Coach put in a good word for me with Buck, who then put in a good word my grades and everything were fine, but it's a very competitive market. And so I did get in there and got my master's degree there. But I had thoughts of maybe at some point going back to Stevens Point, but definitely not while he was there. Was never in my mind.
That wasn't a driver of like, I want to coach with dad necessarily at this age and stage that we're talking about.
No, that definitely never crossed my mind.
And you mentioned, I wanted to ask this real quick. You mentioned, I think an older brother who also ran track.
Yes.
Does he coach?
He does not. He's in the kind of a similar industry to you, except he just does like treadmills and weights and ellipticals and things like that.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
It's really interesting, Mike, in that I actually thought that my older son would be the one that would go into coaching. Okay. Oh. He went to graduate school at Western Michigan, and Jack Shaw was the coach at that point in time.
Yeah.
Jack had a heart attack, and my son was forced to become the coach while Jack was recovering. And he had to run a conference championship, the Mid-America. And so he thought that he was going to be the one that did that. And he was kind of applying for jobs when he got out. And his wife, God bless her, and we all know if you're going to be a coach, your wife has to be in.
Amen.
100%. His wife came from a family where coaching was not even a thought, and she wasn't sure that she wanted to commit to that kind of a thing. And so he found the next best option in that he stayed in sports and works for companies that sell a lot like you. He works with, selling exercise equipment, that type of thing. So he stayed in the realm of athletics, but in a different capacity where he's not gone every weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I speak to a few classes, typically one a year, of college kids and some kind of like careers of athletics class, and things like that. And I'm always telling them, I was like, I know the vast majority of you probably want to be coach. First of all, that's not exactly a career for everybody. I go, here's the good news. There are so many other careers in sports and that you can still be involved in, from ESPN to treadmills to everything. There's marketers that are just for sports, etc. There's so much, lawyers for athletics. I mean, there's anything in society, you can add sports to it, and there's a need for it in some form or fashion. So that's really cool. Any other siblings that did track or maybe coach?
Just the two of us.
Two boys. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all you could handle. I get that.
Yeah.
I get it. Brett, so you go to Knoxville. I mean, that's in what years was this?
Fall of 98 to the spring of 99.
So right before Justin. A good friend of mine is Justin Gatlin.
He was a freshman. That's the year they won indoor.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I thought that was 99, 2000. I'm getting old, Brett, so
no, it was.
Okay,
they won football with T. Martin, and Justin Gatlin was a
Martin.
freshman, and they had, I'm gonna draw a blank on his name, but they had the other short sprinter,
Leonard Scott.
Yes,
Yep.
Thank you. I would not have come up with that name.
Yeah. Well, so Jay's a good friend, and then another guy that was hanging around during that time, it was Andreas Baim, kind of in that era. It might have been just after you, but now amazing coach, things like that. That was a time. I mean, Tennessee has a long history of track and field, obviously, but that time for track and field was really something special. Were you coaching, GA coaching, managing? What were you doing?
I was teaching classes for the physical education program.
Okay.
And then I was still trying to just stay in shape. And so I was on the track one day, and like I said, I was a good runner. And so I was doing a pretty challenging workout, and the cross country team showed up, and a couple of the guys walked over to me like, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing?" And I told them, and they're like, "Well, do you want to run with us sometime?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they took me over, and I met George Watts, who was a great man, and he welcomed me with open arms. And so I kind of just started training with their half milers then for that year that I was down there, and I got to run a couple races. And
wait, so like Mark Sylvester would have been there?
No,
after
Adrian Wheatley.
Oh, Adrian, yes, of course, yes.
And there was one other guy, and I don't know
Hassan Stamps, but he was 400 hurdles, but Hassan would have been there.
Yeah, he would have been there. I recognize that name. I can't remember the other half miler.
Jabri Harris, was he there during that time?
I don't think so.
Now at Azusa Pacific. Yeah. Anyway, here's the thing. There's so many amazing athletes that were during this time. We can name 100 of them.
Yeah.
In a time frame. That's so cool, man.
It was an absolutely amazing experience. I wouldn't take it away. I wouldn't change anything. I did learn 100% though that Division I athletics, Division I track and field, very different from
a little different.
Right. And it did help me solidify that time. D1 is not for me. That is not. I want to coach, but this is not the level I want to coach at.
Yeah, I've made. I coached for 10 years, and majority of it in Division I, a year at JUCO as well, and a little bit in high school. But doing this podcast, we're at 350 something episodes, whatever. I always tell people, I was like, I'm very conscious about having coaches from all levels, middle school, high school, all the NCAAs, NAIA, JUCO, professional, etc. And I always tell people, like, who smiles a little bit more than any other coach? My D3 coaches. I was like, I don't know. They've cracked the code, I think. And I wonder, because I've been here 20 years, so I'd be on my 30th year of coaching. I was like, I wonder if I'd have wisened up by now and figured it out that D3 is the place to be. I'm so blessed that I, coaching the SEC and stuff, so much fun and great athletes and blah, 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 blah. But it's also the reason I got out of coaching was Division I and all the stuff with it as well. You D3 guys, man, I swear, you just seem happier. Just gonna say it. You just seem like things are a lot better off there, man. Okay, so you go to Knoxville. You're learning a lot. Rick, this might be, from what I understand, this kind of the first time a kid's maybe farther away from you guys, and I kind of get the sense this is you guys are family first type of family. How was that with Brett all the way out in Tennessee?
It was good. I was happy for him. He needed to get away and spread his wings and see what was out there. As he said at that point in time, I think he knew he actually wanted to coach at that point in time, and he needed to see what it looked like in comparison to UW-Stevens Point. Yeah. And while, like he said, he was there kind of he ran with them. He helped out a little bit, was involved and got to see how it works at the Division I level. And so it was a great experience. He made it perfectly clear to me. And I always tell his mom and my wife laugh about this. When he decided that he wanted to be a coach, he wanted to be a coach, and he wanted to get it on his own merits. He didn't want dad to, call so-and-so and say, hey, why don't you give my son a job type thing.
Yeah, because you know a lot of people. For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love that. Brett, did we come back home after graduate work, or what did we do after Knoxville?
For about 2 weeks. And then I was fortunate that Steve Ray at Carthage College gave me my first full-time coaching gig in Kenosha, and I spent 15 years there.
Wow, is that right? Now, forgive me for not knowing everybody. Carthage, Division III,
Division III in the CCIW with the North Centrals, Augustanas.
Got it. Okay.
That conference.
So you weren't in the same conference as Dad, but you're in the same division
and the same state.
And the same state. So a lot of the same track meets on the weekends.
We crossed paths a couple times. We crossed paths in recruiting a couple times for sure.
Yeah. Oh, come on. There has to be a war story or 5 on that.
I think he won most of them.
Yeah. Rick's got the ultimate trump card. It's like, yeah, my son's great. I love him to death, but you know who taught him everything?
He had the teacher versus the student card, and I think the teacher card won every time.
Exactly. But you had my dad's old, and well, you wouldn't even do that though. That's the kind of thing. That's the
I've said this to other people. I mean, I obviously wanted my team to win and beat his team, but I was always good with his team being second or his athlete being second, as long as my guy was in front of his or gal. Well, I guess I coached gals a little bit there, but for the most part, guys.
Was there ever the one that got away that went to the other one that you're like, man, I really wanted Susie, and gosh, she went to Brett and she did good and all, but man, I wanted Susie on my team.
As he said, he did most of his recruiting down in Illinois in that area. Smart. And there were a couple of guys that I was recruiting that he ended up, getting just because, well, he did a better job than I did. They ended up going to the place that was right for them. So, there wasn't a lot of overlap, though, because, as you said, most of our recruiting is done in Wisconsin itself. And Brett found that his energies were better spent, in the more populated areas of the suburbs of Chicago. And he had some good teams when he was at Carthage, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. We've got a Carthage alum on our team now here, Adam Kedzier. He was a multi at Carthage, okay. And then now oversees some of our construction items here for Gill. So nice. Love Carthage. Our whole team is kind of weird. The majority of our sales team actually graduated from Illinois State. They're all Redbirds. And then we get this Carthage kid. I'm like, well, you're kind of a Redbird. It's a red bird, that
right.
It's like we pretty much only, if your mascot's a Redbird, you got a shot at the job here. Otherwise, just go somewhere else. Yeah. That's awesome. So Brett, what was it like? Was there ever, I'm gonna say like again, I feel a strong, I mean, maybe it's just obvious, maybe it's just because you two are in front of me right here. I feel a strong like family connection here. Like the Witt family really like protects each other and loves each other. As you're working at Carthage, was there ever a side eye looking at Stevens Point going, man, if there ever was a, during that time, you were at Carthage for 15 years. I have to assume there were some jobs open at Stevens Point during that time. Did you ever consider hopping over or not the right time?
I I don't think there was one that was ever open obviously I had some inside information. I think it was open twice during my time.
Sure.
And I think he kind of said it's we have other needs. You don't check some of the right boxes,
Sure.
for lack
Sure.
of better words. Like it's not worth it.
Mhm.
Um, he and I talked a little bit like what his retirement plans might be, how much longer he wanted to do it. As I said, I never gave a whole lot of thought to coaching with him.
Mhm.
I always thought maybe I would replace him.
Mhm.
And so, no, I don't think I ever applied for a job here though prior to getting that where I'm the position I'm in now.
How, it seems like you guys did a very healthy job of when during the recruiting process, when you were younger. How was it during this time when you got together for Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners? Was dad still dad, or now it's you're closer and closer to peer at this point? You're both professional track coaches. Was there more track talk at the table, or did you keep that separate? That's my profession. We're here to talk about maybe family, grandkids, maybe, I don't know.
I
I
think
think it would go ahead.
track is always at the center
Sure.
when we're together. I've said this, and Mike, I know you. My wife, as many people knew my wife as they knew me at because she went to conventions and all the socials that you guys hosted and all those types of things. She was there, so she's been into track and field, 100% all the time. When you've got a son that's in it and a husband that's in it, you better be. And so, yeah, I mean, things revolved around track and field, and where are you going to be? What are we going to do at Easter? Are we even going to have a chance to get together, or is it going to be at a track meet, or are we going to have Easter at a track meet, or those types of things? It always kind of
Yeah.
yeah. Or, is half the team going to be here having hot dogs because they couldn't go home for their Easter? Just
Yeah.
those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kept it, it evolved around track, but it was also family. And, the one thing that I will throw out, because I stole this, it's not mine, but you've heard it before, but our AD was in one of our ADs was actually one of my students in my coaching class. And she always tells me that the one thing that she learned from my coaching class is that kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's kind of the philosophy that we've had at Stevens Point the entire time is we want to win, but we care about you as a person, as an athlete, as a student. And I know a lot of people say that, and a lot of people do it, but we are one that do it, and we live that. And when my AD says that to me, I go, you know what? We were doing something right.
Right. So a kid in your class became your AD.
She's our associate AD right now. Yeah.
What a great lesson of be kind and be true to everybody, whether they're 20 years you're younger or the garbage man, the janitor. I mean, you never know. That's amazing.
It's fun. Yeah, it is. And it makes you feel good when you feel like that, yeah, you did have a little bit of an impact on somebody along the way.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, tons of impact, not
Yeah.
little impact, Rick. Yeah. Did you ever, speaking of administration, I like to encourage our track coaches to potentially go into administration, not because I'm trying to get them out of coaching, but I know a lot of decisions about our sport are happening in the administration level. And I certainly would like to have someone who has some knowledge and passion about our sport. Did you ever consider any kind of administrative role, Rick?
Yeah, there were a couple of times when, things came up and there was some people were asking me if I would, consider, taking over some kind of an administrative role. And I tell people, I'm a coach. At 3:00, I need to, it's almost like a fix. You've got to have that time with the athletes right now. I mean, I'm retired, but at the afternoon time, my wife laughs, said, she knows what's going to happen, at 2:00 or whatever, I'm out of here and I'm in there so that I have an hour to, interact with kids before practice time, just, answer questions, that kind of stuff. And then I get my fix from 3 to 5 when I have an opportunity to have an impact and, do something that I love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first got to Gill about 2:00 every afternoon, I almost described it exactly how you did, Rick. I get itchy and I was like, man, I'm supposed to be outside. I'm supposed to be in the sand pit right now. Something. And I was like, oh man. Yeah, it is, for lack of a better describer, it is a little bit like a fix. Like I kind of get maybe how people who are addicted to drugs get, like, thank God I didn't get into drugs. I think I have that kind of personality. Thank God I got into coaching instead of some of those other things, man. Holy cow. Brett, so you spent 15 years at Carthage?
Correct.
How do we get back to Stevens Point?
Ironically, I'm on the golf course on a trip with my wife and some other couples, and I got a phone call from him. And he said our women's coach just resigned to follow her husband to the West Coast. And I was like, holy crap. I don't know. When was that, Coach? July, August, something like that?
Like in August, yeah.
And my wife wasn't on the golf course with me. So I called her and she's like, holy smokes, never saw that coming. And we had like a 3 or 4 hour drive home from wherever we were the next day or something like that. So she and I talked at length, like, is this something that you'd be interested in? I'm like, I don't know. I don't, I've thought about going back to Stevens Point. I never thought about working with him. And happy wife, happy life. Don't tell her I said that. She doesn't like when I use that phrase. She's like, well, I hate my job and I would like a new one. And if you were to get the job there, I'm 3 hours closer to my parents. I'm closer to my sisters. You need to apply for that job. So I was like, yes, dear. So because
you learned so much from your dad. That's so good.
Because of the timing, I let him know that I would be interested, and he passed that along to the athletic director at the time, who apparently had already wondered whether I might be because it was such a late fill. And I don't know, about a month later or so, we're trying to find a place to live and pack up 2 kids and uproot our lives in central Wisconsin from Kenosha.
Wow, man. So you go back to Stevens Point as the head women's coach?
No, they changed the titles, I think, for that. And he was the head of all 6, and I was the associate head of all 6.
Got it. Okay. So you're working for dad's boss in that sense. Yeah. How is, I'm always fascinated with athletes who go on to be coaches and coach with their former coach. Because, there's a power dynamic here, right? And you're getting closer and closer to peer as you go, coach an athlete. As you become assistant coach, it's like, oh, okay, I'm closer. You're still not there, but there's a different dynamic. You look at little Joey differently. He was my long jumper. Now he's my jumps coach. That's a different thing, right? You've got a power dynamic of like, oh, dad as well and son, and there'll never be a peer. Even now you're a father, you're still not the same level. It's still dad. And now you come back as the associate coach over head coach. How I never want to necessarily ask this in a negative way. Like, are there any strains? But how was that adjustment of like, okay, now I'm in the program. That's my boss, also my dad, which that's boss. How did that? How'd you guys handle that?
I'll answer that. I want. He made 2 things well known from day one. One, he got to be called Coach Whitt. I was like, okay, I'm fine with being called Coach Brett or anything like that's fine. And he
gets the oh, I get it. I thought you had to call him Coach Whitt, not Rick or Dad.
No.
He got to be Coach Whitt.
Yes. So I had to find something else.
I love that was his first thing. All right, we got to lay down the rules, brother.
Yep,
I am Coach Whitt.
And number 2 was he got to coach the distance runners during the track season.
Okay.
And at Carthage, I was coaching the 100 through the 10K. So I was like, that's fine. I've enjoyed coaching sprinters. I've had success there. So
Right.
uh, he kind of put those two ground rules down. And I thought the rest of it was pretty seamless, to be honest with you.
Rick, what do you say?
It, I the one thing that I have talked to Brett when he was a coach, and I've lived by, I try to hire good people. I put them in a position where they're comfortable or where they feel like that they have a chance to do something, and then I get the hell out of the way and let them do their own job. And I think that's how you build coaches, is let them, I was there to answer if they had a question, but I never second guessed. They gave me their workout plans and said, here's what we're doing. And so he had sprinters and quarter milers, and Brett had been a really good quarter miler, and so I let him just take them and run. And we had some great success right away, because our philosophies are a lot the same, though. Like you said, he's changed a little bit from people he worked with, but a lot of the things that he thinks are things that he learned through working with and coaching with me.
You guys are really good at setting me up for my segues, because I love to ask about coaching education, because coaching education changed my life, literally my life, not just my coaching life, but my life with like my mentor Boosh Exnader and stuff. How have you guys individually handled coaching education for yourself? How do you have improved as a coach? Rick, you grew up in a time where coaching education was radically different than it was today. Brett, again, same thing. You've grew up in a different coaching education world than Rick, but also you have you have a personal coaching education with you every day, your dad. How have you guys handled coaching education through your careers?
I I feel like I'm still learning all the time, even at this age. As Brett said, we've hired a new cross country coach. He's I had a lot of success in cross country at the time I was at Stevens Point. He does things completely different than what I did with the new, double thresholds and all the new stuff that's out there. He's been really successful, and so I'm learning all the time. I think that you have to evolve. Sometimes we old coaches get stuck saying, yeah, well, that's the way you did it 30 years ago, and no, I think you have to be able to evolve because kids are different than they were 30 years ago. And so I love going to the coaching convention and listening to not just old guys my age talk, but the new guys that were coaching at Texas A&M or, Baylor or wherever, you know what I'm talking about, and the new ideas that were out there. And so, and then you see if they're going to fit into what your environmental situation allows it, and are some of those going to be good for you?
What about like formal coaching education? Because you grew up in this profession before we had USATF coaching education, like level 1, level 2. You grew up when it was back in TAC and things. And I know we had some things. Was there any formal type stuff back then, or was it more clinics and peer to peer?
Yeah, there wasn't much quote unquote coaching education at that point in time. It was pretty much, you call somebody up. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that you would, as a coach, somebody would call and say, hey, I'm going to be in Stevens Point. Let's get together and talk about coaching. Or how many times I've, called Joe Piani at Notre Dame and said, hey, what are you thinking about right now, on this kind of stuff? I think at that point in time, a lot of the old coaches, that's what we did. We exchanged a lot of ideas amongst ourselves, and it wasn't like everybody had a big secret. Everybody was just trying to get kids better, and help people improve.
Yeah, I think of coaching education kind of two buckets: formal and informal. Formal being our level 1s, level 2s, Altus, USTFCA coaching academies, and our informal being more peer to peer. And you grew up in a time frame when there was less formal, and it was. By the way, you didn't even have like I can go on YouTube right now and get a pretty decent education on how to coach distance runners if I wanted to. You don't have that when you're growing up in the profession either, Rick.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, you're right. And I mean, I did go through the level,
Mm-hmm.
when it first came out, I wanted to stay on top. So I did the level 1 and the level 2 stuff, even though, you know, it's kind of what you needed to do to stay current and stay on top of things. Yeah.
Did you ever teach any of those or
No, I did
speak at
not.
clinics?
Yeah. At the time, like I said, my boys were young and were involved in that kind of stuff. And as I said, during the summer, I did try to be dad and,
Mm-hmm.
take in soccer and those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And,
makes sense.
so, and to be honest with you, my other passion is playing golf, and in the summer, my wife and I, that's the one time we get out and do something together. Yeah.
Your wife's a golfer too.
Oh yeah, we play a lot. But Brett will
Oh,
tell you, anytime he calls me in the summer, he'll say, "You're on the golf course, aren't you?" And I go, "Yep." Your mom and I are on hole 7.
that's so cool. I'm a little bit of an anti-golfer because we talked about it, of addictive personalities. Golf and golfers are typically addicted to golf. I live fairly close to a golf course in Mahomet, Illinois, just west of Champaign, and there is someone golfing. Even if I think it's too cold, there's someone on the course. If it's
Oh,
raining, there's still someone on the course. It's too hot, someone's still on the course. It's too dark, there's still some people on the course. It's unbelievable. And do you guys, I don't know if you guys listen to other podcasts. Do you know an author named Malcolm Gladwell? That
yeah,
name? Yeah,
yeah.
one of my favorite. Brett, do you know Malcolm
I don't
Gladwell at
recognize
all?
that
Yeah.
name.
He wrote like Outliers and The Tipping Point. If you've heard of the rule of 10,000 hours, that, if you practice something for 10,000 hours, that's what you need to be an expert, yada, yada. He's kind of the
Okay, I've
person
heard
that kind
that.
of, yeah, yeah. He's an amazing storyteller and author. Like and he's a track guy. He was a miler back in the day. He's born in Canada, but he's got Jamaican ancestry, etc. But anyway, he's amazing. Well, he has this podcast as well. And of course, if you create a podcast, you have to listen to him. It's kind of a rule, I think. But he has an amazing podcast where he talked about the golf courses in California and just how much like water they take and the amount of space per person that utilizes it versus like a basketball court. Anyway, anti-golfer here, not hardcore or anything. Oh, and my team, by the way, oh my God, they'd be on the golf course every single day. But some of us golf, some men specifically golf to get away from their families, Rick, and to get away from their wives. It's an easy 4, 5, 6 hours.
Yeah.
You have wife with you. That's actually kind of like it's a little bit kind of sweet, actually. It's really cool.
I feel very lucky that I have somebody
Yeah.
that enjoys doing that. You'll appreciate this because they've been on your podcast. My best coaching friend is John Zupont from UW Oshkosh and Deb Verkateren, who was the women's coach at Oshkosh, who you're
Yes.
aware of. There are our best friends in coaching. John and I talked every day before they retired. Well, anyway, I told you we're going on a little trip. They have a place in Arizona, and so on a golf course. So you can imagine we're going out there for a week. It's all old track and field stories and golf.
Oh my
But
gosh.
that's what we do for a week. And my poor wife, it's a good thing she's been involved in it because Deb was a coach and
Yeah, right.
coach, and so it's a good thing she's a coach's wife and a coach's mother because she's inundated with old stories about track and field.
If I could do this full time, I have other responsibilities I have to do here at Gill and could actually do like editing and cutting and stuff like that. One of the ideas I've had for like would be a cool show slash podcast would be, I always thought about like taking a lap around the track, but honestly, miking coaches up at a golf outing and just and telling stories. It's almost like the fireside chats of our day of is going to the golf course. I think that'd be really cool. You'd get some great stories from guys and gals. Man, that's really cool. I love that. Okay, Brett, you grew up in a little bit of a different time frame for coaching education, meaning there's a lot more official or formal, I should say, with the USTFCA academies, et cetera, Altus and those good guys. But also there's peer to peer and you may have had the best peer-to-peer, your dad for every dinner table you could have had a million questions for him. How have you been handling coaching education?
I mean, I started with the formal. I did the level ones. I went prior to having kids, I was at convention every year,
Mhm.
and I was going to every person that was talking of anything related to an event area that I had responsibilities for.
Mhm.
But I also have used him a ton, especially early in my career, to ask questions of, you know, here's what I did. Does it make sense to you of why this workout was an utter failure? And he's
Right.
like, well, yeah, you're not giving him enough rest, or something of that nature. Um, and then, I think youth is wasted on the young at times. I think when I was young, I thought I had secrets of how to coach people, and I've got this special workout and things of that nature. And now that I've been in it a long time, there aren't secrets. The X's and O's are the X's and O's, and how you stir them up and put them together. All right, maybe that's your secret formula. But now with my coaching peers, it's ask them questions, and
Mhm.
this is what we're doing, or this is my favorite workout for this. And my coaching friends are, oh yeah, that's similar or different to what we do here. And like you said, though, I just last night I was actually on the internet trying to find Vince Anderson's mini hurdle spacing chart, and trying to utilize technology in that way too.
Yep.
So I think I've kind of used all of those different areas to try to educate myself.
Yeah.
uh, I think our
I,
technology guy got booted off. He's
I
calling back
know.
though.
I was like, he'll get back on here. Is he calling you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he is.
Remember, we don't do editing, so he's just talking to his dad
You,
right now, trying to figure out how to get back online. So,
you should be able to just go back to the link in the email.
well, is he still there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I told him to go back to the original link, and he should
Yeah,
be able
yeah,
to
yeah. He should be able to come right back in.
go back to your Outlook. Or Mike, can you send him a new invite maybe?
Oh boy. Yeah, I think I can do something here.
Mike's gonna try to send you an invite if you can't find it.
Let's see here.
Oh, maybe he just found it, Mike.
Okay, that's good.
All right, he should be back shortly.
Okay, no problem. See, for you guys and gals that are listening, I always tell every guest I don't do editing, so don't make me do editing. And I've told people I've had cats jump on keyboards, restroom breaks, and if you've been a long time listener, you already know all that stuff. So this is all good stuff. It's just like it's much more casual conversation, and I love it. So, Brett, as we wait for him to pop on, what was I thinking? Oh, you said youth is wasted on the young. It makes me think about that conversation. Rick, you're back. All right,
There we
good.
go.
Thank God. Okay. We got all your secrets, by the way, when you were out. So you'll have to listen to the show to find out what we said about you. But we're talking about Brett's coaching education journey. And Brett, you mentioned that, sometimes youth is wasted on the young. And I was thinking about earlier something I said about, it's just crazy to me that we make 18-year-olds pick a major. It's kind of in the same vein of like when we first get into coaching. And some of it's just youthfulness of like we think, well, I had the best coach. I'm going to be the best coach. I already know it all, right? And then we get into coaching educate. Hopefully, we get into coaching education, and we realize like, oh, there's steps to this. I can become better there as we do those things. One of the things I think about with clinics, I do a lot of clinics and host and MC them, and so I see a lot of presentations and stuff like that. I think the best part of clinic presentations is not necessarily the presentation. That's valuable because you're up on stage, but I think it's the ability to then have conversations based on what was presented. Like I
Agree.
started thinking like one of the best coaching educations that I've seen is actually at convention just because of the mass of coaches we have there. And it's the 1 a.m., 2 a.m. hallway talks. I remember when I coached, I can't remember what clinic or what it was, but me and Kaba Tolbert, Todd Lane, gosh, who else was in there? Tyler Wingard from over in Christopher Newport. I just remember us being, I don't even know whose room it was or what, and we were just up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just talking shop, just kind of like the example you gave, Brett. It's like, hey man, I did this workout and man, we crashed and burned. I thought she was going to be able to handle this and she didn't. And it's like, oh, I tried that once and here's what happened. And you just kind of get to like, you almost get to the like overly specific, like, hey, this one athlete, this one workout, but it helps you in your macro of like, oh, all my sprinters, like, oh, the example you gave is like, I didn't give enough rest. That probably is the number one mistake most youth coaches make, to be real. When I say youth coaches, coaches early in their career, is not enough recovery. So that probably is your answer for every question when you first start. But it's like, oh, maybe I need to add recovery to all my sprinters or whatever area you're working out. But I think that's one of the most valuable things is those peer-to-peer conversations.
I agree with you
100%.
there. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, and Rick, that's why, again, thinking about, where you're at in your age and stage of your career, I think that's why it's valuable to make sure we have guys like you at, again, specifically USTF CCCA convention, but all these clinics, I get a little worried when I go to a clinic and I see all the speakers of a same relative age and experience. I'm like, oh, even throughout different discipline, throws, distance, etc. Because I'm like, oh, you all have roughly the same amount of experience. I need a guy or gal up there who's done 40 years of this thing because they've seen more things. And by the way, I need someone who's only done a year up there as well, because there's some things I've forgotten in my 20th year that, like, oh, I see how they're seeing it now. So we need a wide range of clinic speakers and topics out there. And I think that's super helpful.
I would agree with you there. People my age, I tell people, there's hardly any mistake that I haven't already made. And hopefully I can share some of those so that your kids don't have to suffer the consequences that maybe my kids did when I made that same mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that we started in 2025, I'm pretty sure, my memory sometimes fails me. We've done this podcast, like I said, this is our seventh season, and so every Monday we publish a hour to 2 hour deep dive into a coach around the country and sometimes around the world. And we don't talk X's and O's, right? We haven't done that today. We won't do that today. We don't talk about what kind of long jump drill you did, and what kind of mileage you did for cross country. But I know there is a place for that. So we started back in 2025 what we call the Gill 1918 project. Remember, I showed you that book of Harry Gill writing the education. So that was kind of my inspiration. He started the company in 1918. So that's where that comes from. But these are shorter, 10-minute to 30-minute, and they are X's and O's. And I don't give any guide rails or guardrails on the topic. Meaning, if you're a first year coach and you think all your distance runners should run 20 miles per week, cool, talk about it. Because first of all, you're going to learn more about your system when you actually kind of put it on paper and talk about it. And there'll be some people who will maybe talk to you about that as well, and maybe learn something, that maybe there is a kid or two on your team that should be at 20 miles versus 50 or 80 or 100 or whatnot. So that's where we talk about X's and O's, and that's where we try to kind of bring the clinic, almost the TED Talks of Track and Field podcast together in those topics, kind of get away from a physical building and do it in a podcast setting. So.
Sure.
I don't know where I'm going with that, by the way. I'm just, it's the world's worst commercial, I think is what I just gave there. Okay, let's get back to you guys though, because that's what we're here for. Brett, you come back to Stephen's point. You're the associate head coach. Is there a plan, or when and how did that plan come about as far as a transition?
It was it was actually natural. Coach had some health problems and had to step away for a while, and so um, not knowing what his return, if when, will be, it was just natural to promote me to being in charge of everything, and yeah.
Now, Rick, you're the one going through those health problems, so I don't want to be minimize that. But Brett, you're a caring person. It's one thing that a coworker is going through some health problems, and you're going to step up to help that coworker and lead the program and maybe their group and things like that. But it's your dad. How are you that? That seems a little distracting, if you will.
It was initially, fortunately, the health scare. It was serious at the time, but we knew within days that he was probably going to be fine.
Okay.
And so fortunately, it was just a couple days there of like, holy smokes, what's going on type of thing. Obviously, his recovery took a couple months and stuff till he was fully back and ready and things of that nature. So it could have been way worse than it was. So fortunately, it was just a couple days there where it's like, holy crap, do I have to? How do I do all this?
Yeah, I mean, again, I care very much for my coworkers, but they're not my family, right? My father-in-law or my wife, that's a whole different ball game. Rick, sometimes, health scares as we get to any age, doesn't actually matter the age, can change or put some things in perspective. Anything, did you regret spending so much time on the track? Did you regret, this is a dumb question, regret being dad at home and coach at the office, and wish you were coach more to him? Anything like that?
Not really. I mean, to be honest, I knew I'm not afraid to say I had a heart attack, and so it was, I thought I was just getting old. I thought I was just getting old, what I mean? But the energy levels that I had normally had, I didn't have anymore. And it was funny because Brett had been sick and we had a cross country meet, and he had called me and said, can you just take the team today? I think he had the flu or something. And I said, sure. And so we went there, and I was being myself, and it was a course where you couldn't get to everywhere. And so I had taken my bicycle and I was riding all over the place, trying to get splits and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I just don't feel good. You know what I mean? And my chest was hurting. And make a long story short, we came home and I went to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night and told my wife, I said, you got to take me to the hospital. I'm having a heart attack. And so
Oh my God.
yeah, I went in and I had 4 bypasses. And so they told me if I hadn't done all that running for all those years, I probably wouldn't be here.
Right.
They were all plugged. So anyway, at that point in time, I had no clue what I was going to be able to do, or if I was going to be able to do anything. And I mean, I was at the point then, it was, I was 65 years old. So it was like, okay, is this telling me that it's time? And so that's when basically I said, okay, I'll just pull the plug now, and retire and that kind of stuff.
Choose,
and then
choose different words there, Rick.
Yeah.
On this topic, let's choose.
Yeah. So I said to Brett, you take over. And then he was gracious when I actually got back 100%, feeling good again. He said to me, the fire is still there a little bit, isn't it? And I go, yeah, it still is. It's not out of my system. And so he allowed me to come back at whatever level I felt like that I was able to handle at that point in time. And so it's even though I'm older, I still have the fire. I tell people, you were talking about coaching education and learning anything. When I was the head coach, I didn't know diddle about the javelin, nothing about the javelin. I always had somebody that, did that, and we were pretty good at it. And Brett asked me if, we don't have a javelin coach. Do you want to be the javelin coach? And I go, well, yeah, of course, I guess so. Yeah, I'll take it. Well, I'm proud to say that in the last couple of years, we've scored more points in the javelin at our conference meet than any other event. So I feel like I still got a little bit of juice to be able to do something.
First of all, there's some old dog, new tricks. I don't know. Bump that. Dude, I love that, Rick, because there is, and I'm one of these guys back when I coach, there is fear of sometimes of coaching an event that you either didn't participate in or isn't adjacent to your event, right? If you're a sprinter, maybe I can coach long jump, it's adjacent, but there's fear in coaching other events. That you're doing it at that age and stage, brother. It's a little bit like the next time a young guy or gal tells me they're a little scared to go learn a new event, I'll be like, hey, you need to shut up and go talk to Rick. He learned the you didn't go learn like the 100 meet, the sprint. You went and learned the javelin. That's a pretty technical, there's people who do nothing but coach javelin their whole careers, for crying out loud. That's awesome, dude.
Thank you. I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to, try to educate myself on things that maybe I didn't have an expertise in prior to. Yeah.
That reminds me, some of the greatest coaches we've had on the show, Brooks Johnson is one that comes to mind, Cliff Rivelto. They talk a lot about, it really kind of shaped my thought process about coaching, that you're not a distance coach, you're not a sprints coach, jumps coach, etc. You're a coach, you're a track and field coach, and every event is essentially the same. We're all the same goal, I believe, is, I'm trying to remember Brooks' words here, are essentially saying you're trying to move the center of mass from one area to the next, whether that's a long jump runway, whether that's 10,000 meters on the track, throwing a javelin, etc. So now, how do you do that and then add the little intricacies? I'm spinning in a circle for the shot put, etc. So, but their takeaway was you got to coach them all. Like you should be able to coach all the events out there. So that's really amazing, Rick.
Thanks. Like I said, it just happened to be where we needed somebody at that point in time. Yeah. And I tell people I bleed purple and gold, and I want to help my son have the best team that we can possibly put together on the track. And if that means me doing something that I haven't done before, well, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but there's a lot of good YouTube stuff out there. I tell you, you can learn pretty much anything you want right now.
I just thought about this. You said you bleed purple and gold. And I was like, yeah, that's right. The pointer. And I'm like, wait a minute, but UNI was also purple and gold.
Yes, it was.
That's awesome. Yeah.
The entire career.
Yeah. But Brett, when he says he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, genetics are strong. Do you get a little offended when he says
No, not at all. Because I fully admit my wife is smarter than me. So
Oh
she's
God,
definitely
yeah.
the sharpest tool in the shed at home.
Yeah. Thank God for that. I know I'm a byproduct of that. Now, I do want to check in with you, Brett. I play a little bit psychologist when I'm hosting this show. I want to make sure you're okay here. You don't or didn't harbor any false feelings of blame, because do you, when Rick told us that story, and again, Rick, thank you so much for being so open and authentic with that story. You were sick and asked Dad to step in that day, and that's later that night he has his heart attack. You don't harbor or didn't harbor any, like, God, what if I should have just been there and it shouldn't have been him. You don't.
No, not at all.
Okay.
He was right. I had the flu, and
Yeah. Okay.
sitting on a bus was not an option on that day. Like,
Yeah.
that was not an option.
And I truly believe where you are today, and so back then, is where you're supposed to be. It may not be doesn't mean it's the right place or the wrong place, or that it's the place forever, but that's what was supposed to happen. It's kind of another way of saying what's supposed to be is supposed to be, right? And what I think about, sometimes people could feel some faults, again, sense of blame of like, man, if I wouldn't have been sick or whatever. I think of it kind of the opposite way. And I go, oh man, Brett, I'm so glad you were sick that day. And Rick stepped up to do that. And that's when, that's not what caused the heart attack, obviously, but that's, later on we find that that's what happened, because it could have been Rick by himself somewhere because he wasn't at the cross country course. And then, a bed that night, he could have been by himself, and then whatever. He could have went to the golf course that day and he has a heart attack. No one finds it. You know what I'm saying? Like it worked out the right way. Thank goodness. And we have Rick here today because of that. So I just wanted to check in and make sure you didn't or don't feel like, yeah, I kind of feel some blame, zero blame at all.
No, didn't
right.
Anyway, because it had become, I was like a lot of dumb guys, probably had the symptoms, but you know how it is. Like I said, I just thought I was getting old, you know what I mean? And didn't really realize what the symptoms were until it was too late. Yeah. That
makes me, unfortunate. I'm glad my wife doesn't listen to these podcasts, because these are the kind of things I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds a little too familiar, actually, Rick. That's not good. All right, let's pop into some good news here. Let's talk about, as you've done this transition, and Brett, you're now the head coach, and Rick, you're the world's most advanced director of operations. Talk to us a little bit about UW Stevens Point. You guys have had some amazing success, runner-up at nationals, and I know that's so close, but man, I think people forget, especially in our sport, we forget how hard it is to win. And I think it's because we have 22 events on each side and all these different meets that we score and conference, and like when a team wins like 5 in a row, people are like, well, that must get old. It's like, bro, every one of those was extremely hard. You guys have won a lot of conference titles. You've had a lot of individual national champions. How have you kept the bus moving? I mean, it's quite an accomplishment what you guys have done there and are doing.
I think people ask that question. I think when you're a coach, you like to be put in a situation where your administration, your ADs give you an opportunity to be successful. I've said that many times. Stevens Point is a unique place where I really feel like that all of our sports support everybody else. Our administration has done a good job of making us aware that if one of us is successful, it enables opportunities for the rest of us to be successful. And so we had I've had some really good ADs that never micromanaged. They did the best to give us the facilities and the equipment that we needed to try to be successful, and then got the heck out of the way and let us do our thing. And so I think that's there really is no secret. It's just, I think we really care about our student athletes, and I think that shines through, and when you have a lot of people that are out there, you mentioned it. I think at one time or another, I don't know how many college coaches I had, but I think I had at one time like 30 or 35 different coaches that were college coaches that were out there. And it tells me that we did something right, that they would want to be able to continue to follow that type of a profession.
Yep.
And to see them be successful is, I mean, as a coach, that's all you want to do, is to see the people that you've had an opportunity to work with be successful too.
I agree 100%. You know, I mentioned North Central when I think about Al and Grammy, and it's like, man, they helped spread the love of track and field so much. All these people went on to go and do what they did. Same thing with you guys. That's exactly right. Because remember, Brett, you ain't doing soccer right now. Partly, not that one necessarily that one incident, but you know, that was a player into it. That you guys have put the love of our sport, the love of caring for other people, that like other people saw that and was like, I want to do that. I want to be what Rick is. I want to be what Brett is. That is tremendous, man. I love that. Brett, what would you add in regards to just how you guys have done this at UW Stevens Point? It's year over year. I mean, it's quite amazing, the consistency.
I mean, I think consistency is a important word there. I mean, he's been here for 50 years. I'm starting year 12, I think. Um, Maybe a little bump in the road here for a couple years prior to my transition. When I was trying to do all six of them, and having an assistant that was here for 2 years, and then we go to greener pastures, and then I'd get one for 1 year, and then they go for greener pastures. That made things maybe the last 4 or 5 years not quite as good as we would have wanted. But the longevity of the program, I think, is that consistency in coaching. He's been here that long, and people have known that. Back in the day, we had one of the premier Division III indoor tracks. We hosted indoor nationals in 1992. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, when we could bring kids in and have them see a premier indoor facility, I would argue for a distance runner, we have maybe the greatest training environment that you're going to find. We have something called the Green Circle Trail. It's 36 miles of trails that run all throughout town. They're crushed gravel or just compacted dirt. There's bridges over wetlands. They run along the river. They go through the woods. It's not like an out and back north-south trail. So, I mean, that environment for distance runners is absolutely fantastic. And then we've got some great academic programs too, some that are a little bit more unique that not every school offers. So I think all of those components have kind of contributed to things as well.
Does the are other sports at Stevens Point in the WIAC as successful as track? Meaning, like, you know, I don't think I was really joking when I said, you know, if you're going to win the national title, D3, you're going to have to go through WIAC at some point in time. Like, if you're not winning it, you're top five. It's someone in that conference, multiples in that conference. Are other sports like that in the WIAC? Like, is tennis real strong, and football? I don't pay attention to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all right.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now, I don't know. I just looked. We've got like 5 of our teams are ranked in the top 20 in basketball.
Wow.
Our conference champion is playing North Central for the Division III football championship right now. We have 4. I mean, if you ask people, Stevens Point's a basketball school. We have 4 NCAA Division III national championship banners on the wall in basketball.
Wow. Holy cow.
So all of our sports have, you know, had an opportunity to be, you know, pretty successful. So when I say that, you know, our football's been a little bit down for a while, but like Brett said, those goes in cycles, you know, when coaches leave, it goes up and down. But but by and large, you're right. The whole Wisconsin state system, pretty much every sport is, you're right there. I mean, somebody's knocking on the door. Oshkosh just won women's volleyball. So, I mean, every sport here is, boy, I'll tell you, if you're going to be in the top half of this conference, you're going to be a top 25 team in the nation.
Like, it's a big conference championships are my favorite meets out of everything, including NCAA's, to be honest with you. But boy, you win the WIC, like that's a big deal, no matter what sport, but obviously track and field here. Like that's a big, like you got to feel like, we got a good shot here if we can
Yeah,
win our
very true.
conference.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, our conference is so nuts. The best team that we had at the national level recently, we finished fifth at the indoor conference meet, but then we went and got fourth at the national championships.
You're the okay. I'm an SEC homer, so forgive me if this offends you. And bowl season is just over, basically, and SEC isn't doing their job. But you're the SEC of Division III track and field, because that's exactly how we would feel in SEC. It's like, man, we could. When I was at Mississippi State, our goal, it's hard to say our goal was not to win the conference championship. We just didn't have the depth. We knew we weren't going to win SECs, but we knew if we had the right 5 to 10 guys and things happen all right at nationals, we could win or get a trophy at nationals. You guys are the same thing. Your depth is unbelievable in your conference, and that translates to sometimes higher at nationals. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very true. They kind of call, jokingly, we call ourselves the SEC of Division III. That's
nice.
kind of exactly the
same.
You're right. Yeah, you could easily be better off in the nationals than you were in the conference.
Right,
yeah.
Right. When I was at level 2, USATF level 2, back in the day, it's when during that summer that's when I got the job at Mississippi State. And so Al Schmidt, who's like a father to me, I love him to death, pulled me out of class and said, "Hey, congratulations, you got the job. You're a new sprints coach, whatever, blah, blah, blah." My teacher at the time was Dennis Shaver, who was at LSU, still at LSU, right? So he obviously knew, one of his students, me, was going to be in his conference. So at the end of the class, at the week, we all went up and shook our hands of our teachers, right? So Gary Winkler and all those guys. And Dennis Shaver shakes my hand, pulls me in close, and says, "You're the enemy now." What's the vibe amongst you guys in the WIC? Are you guys friendly rivals? Is it we don't care who wins as long as someone from our conference wins, or is there some heated rivalries?
I think when we
here's what he says.
I think when we get out of the conference, we are, when we go to nationals, we are hoping that our conference does extremely well, no matter who it is. We want our conference to be successful. So I think that makes a huge difference, when we get there, is that we're actually rooting for each other to do well. Yes, to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I've been on the other side of the coin in that at the private school for 15 years, I've heard the whispers and things that our conference is not the most well-liked conference in the country. I don't think it's because of the people.
Right.
It's because of the success.
Yeah.
And so I would agree at a national championship, I think most people are cheering against the WIAC. So internally, I think we cheer for each other. At the conference meet, we absolutely would like to kick the garbage out of everybody. But when we get to those next level meets, we're cheering for each other.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? I mean, just in sports in general, you guys knew Al Carius and Grammy and stuff, some of the nicest people in the whole world. But trust me, people weren't rooting for their 36th national championship. It's like, dang it, North Central, and same with SEC. That's why there's a million jokes going on right now of like, oh, I thought it meant more and all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, it's because you're good. You guys suffer, air quotes, of the same spoils that, you have a great conference, you have a great team, and, winning is the expectation there. And it happens a lot for many different reasons. So I'd rather be on that end of people, hating, again, air quotes there, versus like, we don't really think of those guys. That's not a good sign.
No, I agree with you there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, guys, as we start to wrap up here a little bit, talk to us about Stevens Point. You guys are great coaches. You've great consistency. You've been there for a while. The way I like to ask this question is what's got you excited about the future at Stevens Point? And the future could be this season in 26. It could be 2036, for crying out loud. What's got you excited there at Stevens Point?
I've been excited ever since, honestly, they took cross country off my plate. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just, I never realized how busy, how heavy of a lift it was until it was taken off my shoulders. And now that we have someone who's 100% dedicated to the distance, and they are doing everything in the fall, and I can just worry about track 365. It's helped our distance squad for him just focusing on them, and we've got some great distance crew now. It's allowed me to elevate my recruiting, I think, and my effort and the people that we've brought in for track and field. And so I'm just excited. It's kind of a breath of fresh air to maybe tunnel vision a little bit more than what I was doing for my first 8, 9 years here when I was trying to, okay, track, go do this while I'm getting the team cross country team ready for the conference championship, and let me know how it goes tomorrow type thing. Like, I'm not having to do those things anymore. So that's what's got me excited is we've got a little bit more specificity for the programs and coaches that are dedicated to each versus me wearing too many hats.
Yeah, I could see that. It makes a lot of sense.
I I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about right now, and I mean, Gill will be involved in this to a certain extent. We're in the process of building a brand new outdoor track,
Mm-hmm.
and so we've been behind. Not that we use that as an excuse, but it has hindered to a certain extent when you are going on a 1960s track and competing against people that are in the 2025
Right.
facilities. It's a little bit more challenging. Let's put it that way. And
Right.
so we're going to be on a even keel, even par with some of the best facilities in the country in another year. And I think when you have an opportunity to bring people in and show them a purple and gold track in the middle of purple and gold territory, it will be able to make our recruiting maybe somewhat easier. I'm not saying that it's going to change things, but at least we're not ashamed to show people where we practice and things now. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You'll see in social media and life, you'll hear the statement, it's you don't need the Taj Mahal of facilities and all these kind of stuff. And I don't necessarily disagree in that sense, but you do need to have facilities. I'm reminded we just had Trent, the men's head coach at University of Rhode Island, and Lori, the women's head coach at University of Rhode Island, and very similar to what you just described there, Wick. Rick, they had a track, but couldn't host any meets. Actually, still went to other high schools to borrow track. Just wasn't safe, to be real frank with you. And they're right now, as we're speaking, in the middle of construction of their brand new facility right outside their offices, and it's just going to be a boon for that program, for the community itself. And so while we don't necessarily need to build Hayward Field everywhere, that would be awesome, by the way. I'd vote for that. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we do need safe facilities. We need facilities that cater to all of our athletes: javelin throwers, distance runners, sprinters, hurdlers, and throwers as well. So I'm excited for you guys, because it really is amazing what you guys have done with the facility that you currently have. I mean, that's certainly not it's certainly not helping you guys currently. And so the new facility will, yeah, that's it. But you are a great example of, you can get it done. If you got the right people and the right attitude, you can still get it done. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
I love that. Guys, this is special to me. I get to do this every week and get to really deep dive into people's stories and how they got into track and how they got into coaching and lessons learned and mentors along the way. This is at least the second one. We did have Coach Webb at the University of Pittsburgh and his son, Alonzo III, on the podcast. And that was cool to see dad and son relationship and how they grew up. And so these are special to me to be able to see. It's one thing to have two, I've done staffs before. And again, kind of what we talked about, staff versus family. They care for each other for sure. You care about your staff there, Brett. That's obvious. But you care about dad more. Dad is dad first. So it's special to see how you guys grew up, how you navigated. Seems very healthy, honestly, the way you guys navigated coach and dad and son and athlete and recruiting. I love that story of you writing your son a letter, bro. That's precious. Really. It really is, that you had as much respect for him as you did as an 18-year-old kid. Let's be real. You were a kid back then. That you still said, hey, I'm going to treat him as if he was Joey up in Kenosha down in Kenosha that I'm going to recruit. I'm going to respect him that way and not assume. I think that's really special. And it must be healthy, because you guys are still at it. You guys could have gone your separate ways. I could be interviewing you at Carthage in your 20th year, but you chose to work together. And I think Stephen's point is better better off for it.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Well, thank you guys for being here. You know, one of the most expensive things you guys can give me is your time. I probably stopped you from playing the front nine today, Rick, being out there for these couple of hours here. And Brett, obviously,
it's 12 degrees outside. I think he maybe would have been inside at a driving range.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, you know, I was gonna say, you say that, but I was like, I know somewhere someone's playing golf and similar-esque. They're crazy, man. I can't believe it. Unbelievable.
That'll be next week at this.
Exactly, exactly. But so grateful for your time today and your insights. Honestly, your openness and authenticity is really healthy. I think that helps a lot of people that are listening. One, to know about just careers and how you came up and did your career and how you chose to switch from broadcasting over, how you went from teaching PE to being Dan Gable's punching bag, literally, to you know, a Hall of Fame career. I think that's super helpful for people to hear and to understand. And then even I know there's people that have maybe struggled with, should I, not that you pushed your son into coaching, but I struggle with maybe my son coaching or my daughter coaching with me. I think that's extremely healthy. And so I'm just grateful that you guys would sit down with us today and kind of open book it for us. And I'm just so grateful for you guys.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun.
Yeah, this was a great time. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you guys for being here again this week. Season 7. This might be, and this is hard to say because it feels like I'm putting down my other 6 seasons. But this string of the start to season 7 has been some of my most fun. I think hopefully I'm getting better as a interviewer and host here as well. But I think we're just having some great guests that are maybe as we've gotten more trust in people because we've been in the podcast business now for 7 years, more and more people are being even more open and honest. And I just think that's super helpful for our profession, that we want to always continue to move that profession forward and make it better for our men and women who choose to be track coaches. So thanks again for being here today, and join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Take care. Bye.